Hi everybody, I'm Freerider2142, and today I'd like to talk to you about formation flying, how to do's and don'ts kind of thing. I'll include some real life rules and regulations, but not a lot, just the basic stuff. Mostly I'll talk about how to do formations actually on the server or in other games that kind of have lag issues and things like that. You kind of need to pay a different kind of attention to things when you have lag issues and it's not like real life where every response happens in an instant. Now, before I touch on any of that, I'd like to bring up a subject regarding my previous video, my multiplayer bullies video, and I'd like to make one thing very, very clear. I keep the fight in the fight. When the fight's done, then there's no one to fight. Basically, that video was not about Essence. That video was about bullies. Essence, yeah, I caught him bullying and I harassed him a lot for that. I'm not gonna upload any of that videos because I don't like showing bully stuff. I don't like recording bullies doing their stuff. You don't see bullies in my videos usually. Um, and it's a big point of that. I don't want to bring them up. I don't want to, uh, make them famous through my videos. So if I know somebody's bullying and I have a recording of him, even if it's a good recording, I'll probably just delete that recording immediately because I know he was bullying at that moment, and that's that. Um, so that's the general thing. That video was not about Essence, it was about bullies. If somebody's backing off from being a bully, then stop. And don't shut him down or anything like that. Yeah, he was confused, and you can get pissed off by it. I get pissed off myself a lot if somebody keeps bombing me and doesn't let me fly. But if he backs down, let him back down yourself. And if you can, like you see in this video, this was later on the same night actually. And I asked him, hey, you want me to grab a Su-25 and join you up in formation at some point? And yeah, and this whole flight is gonna be from Right to Maywar. And I'm going to use this flight actually to introduce formation rules and things like this. Now, another point that I'd like to bring up before this is lag issues and loading up high part counts in multiplayer. This aircraft is 500 and something parts. It's not that heavy, but it is quite heavy. However, think about it like this. In multiplayer, the server itself needs to calculate every player, every part, everything that has basically physics calculations involved. Every rotator, every axle, everything like that. Everything will require more power out of the server. You can have something with few parts, but if it's all only rotators and it's moving around all the time, that'll create a lot of lag in the server. On the same thing, if you have a big creation with no moving parts, but it's just tons and tons of parts, like 1000 and above, then it's going to create a lot of lag on the server. You can fix this if you know XMLing and you can remove the physics calculations and you know how to do this. Then high power counts do not affect as much because the server does not need to calculate their physics at all. And I don't mean set their calculations to zero. I mean remove their calculations. There's a way to do it. I never mess with it, so I don't really know. Sorry. But that's a big point. Like, if you look at this cockpit, for example, for me personally, I find everything that I'm looking at redundant. Yeah, there's a lot of cool switches and there's a lot of cool things, but nothing does anything. It's basically only there for show. And in multiplayer servers like this, flying around, I am the only player that can actually see all these cool stuff. Nobody else around me can see this unless he's flying really, really, really close or I'm not moving at all. So, yeah, I love cockpits. I love realism, but I love when things move. If you look at my Orca video, yeah, I have a cockpit in my Orca, but it shows exactly what it needs to. There's nothing that doesn't work there. If it's not supposed to be in the cockpit, then it's not there. So if this was my own plane for multiplayer purposes, I would have a model like this for sure, just for show, because I love the visual of it and it looks beautiful, the whole cockpit and all the gauges and all the switches and everything. But for multiplayer, for flying around in multiplayer, I'd make the same airplane. I would just remove everything inside the cockpit that only I can see to begin with. And then I'd start removing anything that doesn't have a purpose other than, like flags and markings and decals that you want on the plane to show the beauty of it, because that's very important as well to see. So just be aware of your high part counts. Basically, when you're in multiplayer, I have a lot of creations that are high part counts, but I usually create another version, which is just the same thing. I remove everything that doesn't need to be in it. It's basically the creation itself, plus just a bit of beauty parts on the outside, because whatever I can see in the cockpit, other people cannot see, and it's multiplayer. If they cannot see it, what's the point of having it there? You know? So that's kind of my point in that regard. But that's kind of the thing. Watch your part counts. Try to bring part counts around 500 to 600 is okay when the server is on low people count, even 700. If there's only two of you, you can bring it up until one of you is annoyed by the lag. But if the more and more people join in, the more the server needs to calculate, so the less and less parts you're going to be using. So basically, eventually, if there's like 10, 15 people online, you're going to be reduced to 200 to 400 parts, basically, depending on your computer and, of course, things like that. So be very, very, very aware of that. Now I'm going to move on to formation flying and talking about that. So thanks a lot for listening to this kind of rant. All right, first thing to know is that you have two roles whenever you're flying formation. Whether it's two people or more, there are only two roles. You have the flight lead, which is basically the guy who maintains the flight heading and speed, making sure that everybody can catch up, making sure that he's flying slow enough for everybody to maintain a flight distance with him. And of course, have kind of the flight plan where you're heading and keep that heading. The second job is the wingman. There can be multiple wingmen, but basically they all do the same job. Their job is to maintain a safe distance from their lead aircraft 100% of the time, following him in, looking around, guarding him whenever you can. That's the job of the wingman. So if you get into trouble and somebody gets on top of your lead, you as the wingman can get on their six. Now, if you look at something like on the left top side, there's the VVIC formation. Here you can see there's the section leader, red 1. Then you have wingman number 1, which is red 2, and wingman number 2, which is red 3. So this is the basic formation you'll see, and you should try to fly most of the time when you're flying in Simpleplanes. Right below that, there's the finger 4 formation. That's a good formation if you have 4 people. If you have 5 people, you can just extend that basically to have wingman number red 5 to add into this. You'll add him to the right and below red 2, basically on the opposite side to wingman red 4. But in this case, you basically have 2 flights as well. So red 1 is the flight leader. Wingman red 2 is watching red 1 at all times, maintaining a safe distance. He doesn't need to care about red 3. Red 3 needs to care about red 1 and watch him at all time. Red 4, on the other hand, watches red 3 at all times and maintains the safe distance. For red 4, red 3 is the flight lead. If the flight breaks off formation and red 3 goes somewhere, red 4 is going to follow him, basically, and break formation, but go with him. That's kind of the thing that you always need to worry about. It's going to give you a safe distance when you're flying around more than anything, because if red 3 breaks away, red 4 stays in its place, it's going to be very hard for red 3 to get back into this position, specifically on multiplayer servers. And when you're a beginner, if you're an advanced pilot and you know what you're doing, it's a whole different story, but I'm not going to go into it. So that's the very basics of it. There are two main rules: lead and wingman. Lead flies, maintains distance. Wingman follows lead and maintaining a safe distance at all times. All right? That's the gist of it. There are different types of flight formations, like you can see here. Here it only covers really 2 of them, and this is the British formations of World War II that they used. The Americans usually use the finger 4 formations, which are basically red 1 and red 2 are in an echelon right formation, and red 3 and red 4 and in an echelon left formation, which are basically just behind and to the right, or just behind and to the left, according to the different formation. So these are the first and most important things to know. Okay, so next thing I want to bring up is rules for flying in a formation. How do you know where everybody should go? Well, it goes like this. Number one, the slowest aircraft, the one capable of holding the least top speed, should be flight lead. That way, everybody else, if they're faster than him, they can always catch up to him and he can go 100% power if he wishes to. If you're flying the same aircraft, flight lead should always maintain about 85% throttle so the wingman can increase to 100 and catch up to him. Don't pause yourself going to chat to let the wingman catch up. Let them take their time. When you pause and unpause and things like this, it messes up the calculation because you pause, you fly straight into them, and they reduce all their speed, and then you unpause, you're still in top speed, and you go flying far away, and now they're in low speed and they need to again catch up to you. So just maintain a steady flight and heading, and make sure that the slower aircraft is at front. Second one, flight plans. Before taking off, when you're stating up, situating up to fly a formation, know where you're going. Set up to fly to Jaeger from right, or just fly around, or just say, all right, we're taking off and we're gonna head west, east, north, or wherever you really want. Wingman positions and things like this should be called out. Like, go into chat and let him know. In this case, if I'm flying SNZ, I will let him know, SNZ, I'm gonna be on your right wing. If there's another one, he will go left wing. And then if there's somebody else and they're gonna go on our wing, then they should let us know. Now, final part, and this is the very, very important in general, fly safe. Control your aircraft. If you see that you have problems in controlling and you cannot maintain headings and things like this, then just break off formation and gain control and then rejoin the formation. Don't try to fight yourself over maintaining formation, because then you can just crash into people. Now, a little point about slowest aircraft first. Of course, if you're flying a fifth generation jet and your flight lead's gonna be a World War I fighter, your chances of flying as slow as he can fly fast are very slim. So of course, take airplanes that fit your own categories. This is Simpleplanes, so most of the time people on multiplayer want to fly their own stuff because they want to show off their own stuff. Not everybody will join you in the same aircraft that you are flying. Be aware of that. But a lot of people will happily just download a new aircraft and join you just to have a double flight like we're having in this video. So these are the 4 rules you should always follow when you're flying around with people specifically. Now, my next point that I'd like to point out is more regarding lag issues and things like this. This also touches kind of on the fly safe thing. When you have lag, like you see sometimes SNZ or other people when I record, you'll see them bouncing around, moving forward or backwards or side to side sometimes. Or when somebody loads into the game, then there's a lag and they will switch positions. The server doesn't really calculate their exact position. Sometimes you'll be 10 feet away from them or 3 meters away from them and you'll still hit them. So be aware of that. Give yourself extra room. Don't be on somebody's, really, really close unless you really know what you are doing. It's very important. I've seen too many people get too close to each other because they think they have room, but they crash into each other, including myself. So, just be aware of these little things. Okay, so that's that. The next point I want to bring up, and this is the gist of it basically, is how to approach another aircraft when you're in the air, how to close up the distance to approach his formation. Now, first things first, rule number 1, maintain visual contact. I lost visual contact with SNZ, I did not break away and he crashed into me. So that's exactly what can happen. Always maintain visual contact. I'm just gonna restart here and it's gonna go on. I'm gonna catch up to him and rejoin his formation. So right now I'm flying. I'm gonna start looking around for him. If I have any AA weapons that I don't want, you know, to lock on him and annoy him with beeping all the time, I can set them up to AG groups, to an activation groups, and then that way they're shut off so they won't beep anything. Now I'm getting a visual on him, and I'm gonna start coming in slowly. When you're approaching your flight lead, especially when you're a beginner, it's gonna take a while until you catch up to your flight lead and get back into formation, you know, and all that, and until you have a stable flight. Just be aware that you should use your air brakes, adjust your throttle, and always maintain visual on your flight lead, what he is doing, where he is, where he is going. If you'll see when I fly around, I don't look at where I am going, I look at my flight lead because basically he's telling me where we are going. I just need to make sure that I'm in a safe distance from him so we can both have fun. Now here I'm coming in. Now you'll also see that I'm trying to avoid anything in the cockpit like the beams or anything inside the cockpit block my view of SNZ. I always maintain a visual. Now, as I'm coming in, and this is kind of the important thing, I always try to maintain a visual line between the tip of his wing and his cockpit's position. Basically, I'm trying to line those two up so when I look to the side, I will see them lined up exactly. I will look at his wingtip and his cockpit. Now, because of lag and things like this, things move around and jump around. So don't expect somebody to stay 3 feet or 5 feet or 10 feet away from you because it's impossible with the current server and lag and all these little things. So don't expect them to be, you know, exact and professional. On the other hand, if you're also messing around, you're playing with players. Most of the guys here are kids. Come on, have fun. You guys are kids or teenagers or whatnot, but let's face it, not you nor I are professional pilots that do formation flyings and things like this. So don't expect people to do these things, specifically in a game like this. If you want to do real formation flying and feel what it's like, go play DCS and do that with F-15s where you actually need to think about what you're doing. So don't rush people into it too much. But the gist of it is like this. Maintain your visual reference of your flight lead. Second, as you're approaching, approach slow and give yourself distance because if the flight lead is going to change direction, you want to give yourself some distance to allow yourself to make the same correction with him. Don't just stay really close to him. Uh, Third is, and it's also regarding maintaining safety, keep your position. If you're wingman number 2 and you're on the right wing, don't switch around to the left wing and go around, especially if there's other people in the formation. Because if there's somebody in the left wing and you're just decide, oh, willy-nilly, I'm gonna switch to the left wing for now, you're gonna crash into him. So either let people know or look around. And it's kind of hard with simple planes because it's hard to look around when you're flying, but you get used to it, kind of. But those are the basic rules for it. In the beginning, when you're flying formation, I highly recommend joining formation in the air. Don't start with taking off in formation or landing in formation. Just start flying around in formation. Get a feel for it. There's a lot of information online for different formation, different types of formation, exact distances, and all these things. I'm not going to go into the exact distances because, again, this is Simpleplanes. It's not a simulator. It's a fun game. You can design, but basically the game is as complex as you decide to build it. So it's not a simulator. So that's about that. I'm not gonna, harass you if you cannot join formation, if you're too slow, if you can't maintain distances or anything, and don't harass other players about it as well, because again, they're just players. They're playing around. They're not professional pilots doing combat duties and getting ready for a mission. Um, with time, as you get better and better, you will notice improvement in how fast you can approach, how far you can maintain. Here I'm going to overshoot, and I'm not even going to bother trying to stop. I'm just going to overshoot, climb above him so I maintain a safe distance, and fly around him, basically. So he can do whatever he wants. And that's the gist of the things that I wanted to talk to you kind of about the whole formation flying and the basic rules. It's not that hard once you understand the gist of it and the basics of who does what. When there's a flight lead, you're the wingman. Watch your flight lead. That's your only job. If you're flight lead, your only job is to make sure that you're flying in a stable way and you're maintaining a constant speed that your wingmen can follow you in. So if you're in the same aircraft, 85%. If you're in a slower aircraft, just let them know what your top speed is so they can catch up to you and know when they need to slow down. Another thing also, of course, is always communicate your speed that you're trying to maintain or your throttle percentage for that matter if you're flying the same aircraft. Yep, I hope this helps. Really do, and I want to see more people flying formations, and more people trying new stuff in general when you're flying around. So have fun with this very, very, very bouncy landing that I'm pulling off here, and I'll catch you guys in the air. See you online.